Okay, so this week I've got a fair bit to do. I am starting off the week by doing, well, I'm going to start off by tidying my desk because it's a bit of a mess. Always is after a weekend. Somehow it's nice and tidy, then it all just goes all wrong. Anyway, I've got some projects that I want to do this week. I've got some new FPP strips that I want to sew some samples for that I can use for photography. I have some what are they called? Square and a square. I'm going to sew some samples of square and a square, and I've got a diamond in a rectangle that I want to sew up. I also have an elf, a girl elf. I've got a boy elf as a standalone pattern, but I've got a girl elf as well, but I want to sew the sample. I've got it as a cushion somewhere. Here's the cushion and the boy. So those are available as a cushion pattern together, but I want to release the boy and the girl as individual block patterns, so I need to sew up a sample of that. I need to do prep for some filming. I'm not sure whether I'll get around to that. I'm also making for the school Advent Christmas fair. I'm not sewing, I'm doing crochet. So I'm making some little crocheted stars. So I've got a big ball of wool and I'm just seeing how many I can sew. I think I'm up to about 12. So these will need a bit of a press and getting all these ends woven in, making a start on that. And yeah, as I say, just a bit of a tidy up. So I thought you might like to follow along and see what I get up to this week. As you can see, I've got quite a small workspace. My sewing table is set up in the corner of the living room and it is so easy to spread out and encroach onto the rest of the room. Sometimes I like to start out with a bit of a tidy before starting on new projects. I'm relatively organised when it comes to my stash, which makes it easy when choosing fabrics for samples of projects, although I still do have a tendency to take my time over decisions. I've decided that I want two different samples of the narrow dogtooth strips. One will be in black and white because I think it's quite striking, and the other one will be in white with a rainbow of colours to match some of the other samples that I've made. So I'm starting off here with the black and white version. Now that the black and white version is all trimmed up, I'm moving on to the white with all the colours. Right, so just adding in my colours. With foundation paper keeping, I always keep like tiny little bits of fabric just in case I need them, especially when you're doing something like this. You don't really need an awful lot. So I do keep all my bits. With this particular collection of fabric, I do tuck it inside, so I'm hoping there's a little bit in here somewhere. Oh, there's a little one there. Let's see if that works. Might be just big enough. Oh, yeah, just. Oh yeah, look at that, that'll do. This white I'm using is a white on white print. It's white with a white butterfly printed over the top, so it's quite difficult to see which way is the right way around, but I just keep checking it against the light just to doubly make sure that I'm not sewing it the wrong way. And that tiny piece, I'm just going to save that. I'm going to pop that in with this fabric here, just in case, because I use these quite often. You might find that I'm using it, I'll find it useful for another pattern. So just tuck it on one side. And normally I'm placing right sides together with raw edges matching, but when I've got white, when I'm adding white, I always make sure that the white extends a little bit further just to stop any shadowing of the previous colour to show through. So on here, I'm not sure you'll be able to see, but the white extends just a little bit further than the raw edge of the orange. It just means that when I come round this side and press the fabric, you've got the white is definitely covering the edges of the orange. You don't want the orange poking out because you'll likely see that through on the right side. And with these, because I'm working on a narrow strip, these are 1.5 inches finished when they're wide when they're finished, and I just want to keep these seam allowances as narrow as possible just to stop the strip from getting really bulky. So I'm using an add 1/8 ruler rather than an add 1/4 ruler. Now this print I really love. I think it's great. It's got all these little tiny motifs on it, which are super cute. But when I'm working on a small scale with foundation paper piecing, I've got to remember that on my finished piece, not very much of the fabric is going to show. So what I want to do is just make sure that I don't have something like this, and it won't because that's on the edge, but what I don't want is for one of these motifs to be in the middle of the section of the foundation paper piece, because I want the yellow to be the hero, not this sort of mustardy coloured here, or I don't want that pencil to be in the middle because I want the hero to be the main yellow. So I just need to just take a little moment just to make sure that that's going to be placed correctly on the print. So if you're ever worried about how you place your fabrics on, what you can do is you can use a light box, or if you don't have a light box, you can just hold your paper up to the light and you can just see the shape. Yeah, roughly drawing. You can just see the shape that you're choosing your fabric for. So this is for me here, this is piece number 9. So I know that that's the finished area. So when I place that on top of my fabric, I can make sure that I'm not accidentally placing it over a piece on the fabric with a motif on it, because I don't want that showing in the finished section. So it's a form of fussy cutting, if you like. So when I fold this back, I can see that when I come to join the next piece of white that creates a triangle here, that I'm only going to get this portion of yellow and nothing else. And then I end up with a nice neat strip. There are the threads, and that looks super. It will look great as a border or an accent on something. So I've got that version and that version. Pleased with that. So I'm going to have a bit of a tidy up, and then I'm going to start to move on and sew up some of those other samples that are on the to-do list. So I've got these diamond in a rectangle templates that I'm going to be releasing as a pattern or a set of templates soon, and I just want to make one of each size so that I can use them for photography, etc. And I want the centres to be white, and the outer colours I'm going to be using these Alison glass prints again for the outsides. I've got this piece of white on white that I was using before, and I think I've got enough to use to do all of the middle. So I'm just working my way around using a bit of my sew line glue pen to attach my template to the fabric, and then I'm just trimming round the outsides to make all of the centres for all of these different sizes. I should just about have enough. So you can see I'm just folding back on each of those diagonal lines and using my add a quarter ruler, because this is a bigger block size, using my add a quarter ruler just to trim off the excess, because I need to make the most of this piece of fabric. So I've got that's my centre done, and I'm going to pop that on one side and prep all the rest of the middles before I come back to be adding all of the colours around the outsides. So that's good. I've made the most of that piece of fabric, and I've got some nice usable pieces left over. So I'm going to add that to my scraps, and I'll use those for other projects. I'm not going to have nearly enough to be doing my square and the square samples as well, so I'll just have to choose a different white from my stash. But those done, so I'll just need to work out which colours I'm going to use. I've got 8 different colours in total, or 8 different sizes in total, so I just need to choose which colours I'm going to use. So that's probably it for me today. It's just before 4 o'clock and the kids are going to be home from school soon. So I've managed to do 4 of my diamond inner rectangles, and I've got 4 more to do, and I will do those tomorrow. And then I'll probably do my square inner squares as well, and then maybe I've got this as well, I forgot to mention earlier. I've got my sewing machine quilt block. I also need to change that in size as well. So we shall see how I get on tomorrow. So I've been sewing my diamond inner rectangle blocks, and I've made all the smaller sizes, and I've mostly been using scraps that I've got left over to fill in these edge pieces. What I thought I'd do is I would show you what I do when I'm working with my larger pieces and I don't have scraps the right kind of size, and I'm looking to be a little bit more efficient. So I'll just show you what I do. So when it comes to these larger pieces, when I don't have scraps that are large enough, what I'll do is I'll cut rectangles of fabric that I then cut on the diagonal to use for these corner pieces. So I've just on one of these corners here, this one, I've traced through from the other side just to make it easier for me to read off, and I'm not drawing on this side of the pattern, just to make it easier for you to see. I've drawn the stitching line here, which are these solid lines on the outside edge, and I've drawn in the dash line here, which is the 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm then going to take my acrylic ruler and I'm going to place the 1/4 inch line on this stitching line, and the outer edges of my ruler should line up with these dashed lines. I'm then going to slide it slightly to the left and slightly up, so at a 45-degree angle, just to give myself a little bit of extra wiggle room. And then I'm going to measure across this way so I can see that my diamond in the middle has got my 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I need to bear that in mind. I'm not measuring against the fold of the fabric. I'm looking at this 1/4 inch here on the first fabric, and I'm going to measure across, and I'm going to say across to 3 inches, and then I'm going to follow this diagonal line all the way up, and I'm going to imagine that that's extending all the way up here, and then I'm going to give myself a little bit of extra wiggle room because I'm seeing that that would come out just over 5 inches. So I'm actually going to cut my rectangles at 5.5 by 3, and then I'm going to cut that in half on the diagonal. And I'm doing 5.5 by 3, which is the same as 6, so 2 3s by 5.5. So I'm going to just cut this piece here. Okay, so I've got 2 rectangles here at 5.5 by 3. Now, because these are not equilateral triangles, they're whatever the geometric name is for those, which I can't think of at the moment, and I'm using a print fabric, I need to make sure that I'm cutting one rectangle in half one direction and the other in half on the other direction. So now when it comes to using those for this, we can then place them in all four corners. Okay, so then that's the fabric prepped when you don't have your scraps and you're looking to reduce wastage as much as you can. And now for my favourite part, trimming everything up. What I've done is these last two corners that have been added, they flap a little bit. So I've just taken some Soline glue pen and I've just put some between the paper and that fabric just to keep that in place before I start to trim. So each time I'm placing the 1/4 inch line of my ruler against the solid outer line, and that means that the outer edge of my quilting ruler matches with the dashed line on the outside edge of the template. And I'm just trimming off through all of the layers using an old rotary blade, and I'm using an old mat or a smaller mat. So that's me all sorted. I've now got all my centerpieces cut, and then I've got all the fabrics for the outsides, and those have been cut into squares and then cut in half into triangles, and now I'm ready to get sewing. So there's my next set done. I've done all of this square in a square. I've got some computer work to do because I think I might just type up something that talks about the measuring the different sizes that you need for both the center squares and the outside pieces. I might do those as a free printable when you sign up to the newsletter. So anyway, I've had a good couple of days. I've managed these samples, these ones, and of course these ones as well. Next up, after I've done some computer work, I'll probably be doing my work on either the sewing machine or on my girl elf, because time is of the essence and Christmas is coming and all that. So yeah, that's where I'm off to next. I've updated the illustrations in the instructions for the narrow dogtooth strips. I'm currently using Microsoft Publisher, but support for that's coming to an end, and I will eventually have to swap over to a new program and learn how it works. But that is a job for another day. Before starting on the cheat sheets for the square in a square and the diamond in the rectangle, I decided to make the Etsy listing video for the narrow dogtooth strips. The challenge for me is to get the video length down to 15 seconds. It always feels like there's just so much to pack in. Once that's all sorted, the video can be uploaded to the Etsy site and the product can go live both here and on my own website. I'm working on these crochet stars for the school advent fair at the start of December. I found the pattern many moons ago on the Royal Sisters blog. She also has patterns for a tree, a heart and a circle. I'll pop a link to the site in the description below in case you'd like to make some too. At the moment, I'm just making stars from the giant ball of acrylic yarn. I've got around 20 done so far, and each one takes about 20 minutes, including blocking and sorting out the ends. Hopefully they will sell well at the fair and raise lots of money for the school. My week was rounded off with another cup of tea and some time with a blank page in my notebook to plan and prioritise what's next. I have a tendency to work on far too many projects at once, so it's good to take the time to sit, plan out what I'm going to do over the next 10 days. Well, that's just about it from me. As usual, I haven't got nearly as much done as I'd intended when I started out, always the way. But you've seen a little insight into what happens and what I get up to, and I hope you found some tips along the way. If you'd like to follow along, click subscribe and you'll find out when my latest edition is. But in the meantime, thanks so much for watching and I'll see you next time.